Yo, Sheldon.
Chevy, what's going on, my friend?
Well, what's going on is I heard a rumor. I heard a rumor that you got a secret admirer. Is it true?
Okay, first off, by the very definition of what you said, if it's a secret admirer, then I don't know about it.
Well, I guess okay. So it's been confirmed. You do know about it. Sheldon has a secret admirer, folks. We found out that Sheldon's hair is so swell that everyone loves his hair. And I think that's fantastic. Can we elaborate?
I think I already know. I think he just joined us. There's two. The last guy to comment on my hair was Rubio from the Rubio Method, and I don't know if I'm his type though. I'm not sure he's into that strong, silent, sexy Shrek type that I am.
Well, you do have swell hair. In fact, speaking of hair, my son was in the car this week, and I don't know how to take this, but he's like, "Hey, Dad, because my hair's been growing out. I haven't had a haircut lately." And he's like, "Dad, you don't look as bald this week."
Didn't we talk about that? The underhanded compliments, like
yeah.
Thanks,
But
I guess.
You know what? Jamin pipes in. He says, "Eat your heart out, Elvis," and that's kind of what I was thinking. You got that little Elvis flow there. It's a really good, thick head of hair, whereas mine is thinning. But yeah. Well, you have a secret admirer, someone who listens to our show. Absolutely thinks you're the cat's pajamas. I don't even know what that expression means.
The cat's meow. The cat's meow.
The cat's ass. Either way, we think you are all the cat's the cat's asses, the cat's pajamas for joining us tonight on a Tuesday night. We know you have many things that you could be doing, but you're right here with us on the ride, and we got a really good show tonight. We've got a special announcement in the first segment. We're going to talk a little bit about wrestling. We grew up loving some wrestling. We kind of went away from it, but it's kind of drawing us back in. So a little bit of wrestling. Then very special guest tonight, David Stark of the Athletes Podcast. You're going to want to hear from this guy. Really awesome story. Really awesome dude. He goes all around the world interviewing athletes and just learning the lessons that they've learned and hoping to impart that on the youth. And then in the third segment, and I don't know, maybe into overtime, we'll get to some of those other freaky deaky topics that we want to talk about. Things in the leftovers bin, things happening this week, whatever kind of tickles our fancy. And we're glad that you're all joining us right here on the ride. You got it. You there? You got it?
Yeah, I'm there. I was a little hoarse today. I feel I've been fighting something off. I feel like, whether your energy's a little low, you've been feeling a little bit off. And tonight, nice little hot cup of tea to carry me through it.
Well, I'm doing the water. And you know what? I think we're just going to start with the show. First of all, we're going to thank our amazing sponsor, Performance Freight Management. We hope our good buddy Daryl is listening tonight because not only are they a sponsor, I guess last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, this has gone pretty quick. Daryl and the folks there at Performance Freight Management said we want to do something for our community, grassroots movement. Obviously, we're coming off the big NGBN.TV event that we had this weekend, where Craig Hannum, who was our guest last week.
And wasn't that amazing?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. He did the suicide first aid training on the weekend, 2 sessions. I got to attend one of them. I really appreciated not only having him on the show last week, but then watching him in action. I thought he did a fantastic job leading and facilitating that conversation. And what a big project that was. And what a great project to be part of with the NGBN TV network. And you and I and Daryl sat down and we said, we wanted to do something grassroots, something local. So what we've got coming up on May 15th, this is our big announcement. May 15th, we are doing a men's mental health movie night. So the good folks at PFM, Daryl, the Cochrane Movie House, and Guys Cafe out in Cochrane. We're hosting a free movie night. So all you got to do is go to the Eventbrite link. Jenna's going to post it in the comments here. We're also going to put it on all our socials. We'll have that out over the next few weeks. We're going to pump this up. It's a free night. We just want guys to come out and hang out, have a good night, forget about their cares, forget about their worries, come and enjoy. Chevy and Nasty, we're going to be doing a live chat where we have Brett Gardner. He's a mental health performance coach. He owns a sport or a performance clinic. He tours all around the world, coaching people on the mental aspects of performance and mental health. And he's also a world-renowned pro rodeo announcer. So Brett Gardner, I had the opportunity to see him before. He's fantastic. And then after the live portion where we speak, Brett speaks, we're going to watch a sneak peek of the movie The Fall Guy.
We're not watching a sneak peek of it. We're going to watch the movie.
We're watching the movie.
Yeah, we're watching the movie.
Sorry, I meant a private screening.
Our private screening.
Our own private screening of the brand new.
Listen to us talk. We're going to feed you, and then let's watch a trailer together. And then good night, guys.
Yeah.
No, we get to watch the Fall, and the movie's The Fall Guy. And I don't know, Chev, when you were a kid, did you watch The Fall Guy? Were you into that series?
I've never spent much time in school, but I taught ladies plenty.
Yeah. I tell you, there's
Lee Majors was
such a stud. Whether it was in The Fall Guy or he was also the $1 Million Man. Yeah. But for me, that I love that show and that 1984 Chevy truck, that two-tone beige and brown truck. Was just a classic. And you see guys bringing back Volkswagens and things from the 60s and 70s. I want a 1984 Chevy half-ton. He had all those little hidden compartments that he could hide their guns and ropes and whatever else they needed for to pull off their missions each week. But I'm excited about this movie. Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt. This is a show I'd almost forgotten about, but needed the respect. I'm excited. So thanks to Daryl, thanks to the Cochrane Movie House, and thanks to Guys Cafe. This is going to be a sensational night, guys. I want to see. I know some of you guys have already gotten tickets. I want to see as many of you guys there as possible. It's going to be a good time. Just a chance to get together.
And you know, Sheldon, it's going to be fun because not only are we watching a really fun movie, and if you haven't seen the trailer for The Fall Guy, you got to watch it. It's cool. Ryan Gosling, like you said, he plays Colt Seavers, probably one of the greatest action star names in television or movie history. Colt Seavers, he's a stuntman, but he's in the TV show. I think he was a PI, but in this one, he kind of winds up on some crazy adventure. Yeah, he was a bounty hunter. In this one, he's a stuntman that kind of falls into this real life adventure. It looks really good, like one of those action comedies. I'm really excited about that, but I'm also excited to get back into the live Chevy and Nasty, kind of like we did back in the day when we used to go to Monty's Crab Shack or Nick's Steakhouse. Or you remember the Gray's Grill where we both ate the 48-ounce steaks?
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
I still have my knife. So we're going to do about a 15 to 20 minute segment. We something a little bit more geared towards mental health, maybe along something that happened in our careers that we had to kind of show resilience through. But then again, Brett Gardner is going to come and speak. He's a world-renowned mental health coach. He's going to give us some practical strategies on how to deal with maybe some of life stressors. It's going to be fun. Like Sheldon said, it's free. We're feeding you. You just got to get a ticket on Eventbrite and show up. We want to pack the theater. I think we have 140 seats. We've already, we've extended the invitation to some personal friends. We already have 35 people or so. So it is going without having even announced it. And we want to make sure that if you're listening tonight, circle May 15th on your calendar, circle Cochrane on your map, and drive down drive up Crowchild West to one of the most beautiful little towns in the prairies. If you're listening, if you're Chris Rubio, AC, any of the guys on the NGBN.TV network, if you're in town, we would love to have you at this event. It's going to be a great night celebrating men, celebrating mental health, and really just having a good time. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. But I think right now, Sheldon, what do you think? Is it time to move on?
Let's get it going, Chevy. How about that poem? Jenna, cue the music.
On Tuesday nights is where you'll find the ride. Follow us at Chevy and Nasty for a quick DM slide.
We have a special announcement, a men's mental health night, which we just told you about. Our grassroots effort to fight the good fight.
WrestleMania 40 put wrestling back on the map. It's back to attitude and entertainment after years of crap.
Or maybe it's just The Rock. Everything he touches turns gold. They needed a new direction after releasing Vince McMahon from the fold.
There's lots going on. What topics will be on exhibit? Will we touch them all tonight, Sheldon? Or will we get a Jenna Ganje enforced limit?
Well, we love all of you, our fans, you all who support our show, and we're the 300-pound poets, and let's just hope our bellies don't grow. And if they do grow, that we still have fantastic hair.
Yeah, well, they might grow on the 15th if I get into the popcorn and some of the treats that are being provided by Guy's Cafe. But yeah, you know what? We talked a little bit about wrestling in the poem. Now, Sheldon, you and I, we grew up wrestling fans, right? Like, you know, the old WWF, right into the Attitude Era. But I got to tell you, like, I was a huge fan right up until The Rock and Stone Cold left. They started pumping guys like Randy Orton's of the world, in my opinion, at the time. Didn't have much personality. The Dave Bautista's, really big jack guys, but they didn't have the mic presence that The Rock had or Stone Cold. And if you lived through that era, and then the Hulkster era before then, the Macho Man Savage, you really were spoiled. And the WWE turned WWF, or WWF turned WWE, really, in my opinion, became boring. I missed the John Cena era. I missed that era. I thought when he came out, they were kind of introducing his character as this white Vanilla Ice rapping guy, and I just fell off. And I literally fell away from wrestling since then up until now. What about you? Like, because I know you loved wrestling growing up. Where did you fall off?
Well, I loved wrestling growing up. In fact, do you remember when the first WrestleMania came about? Like, what a big deal that was. Like, you'd have sleepovers and guys getting together just to watch that, right? In the days of Hulk Hogan. And then I really followed it closely through the days of the Ultimate Warrior. Was, honestly, I know he's probably not one of the most classic guys ever, but I loved Ultimate Warrior. I loved Axe and Smash from Demolition.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I like the storylines. Randy Savage, and what was his manager's name again?
Well, Randy Savage was Miss Elizabeth,
right?
Yeah.
And that whole drama with Hogan, when Hogan turned bad. And then, you know what, when then I lost it for a few years, and then I came back a bit with The Rock. And then I just kind of trailed off, just got busy again, right?
Yeah.
I never saw John Cena, although my kids love John Cena. I don't know if they ever watched wrestling, but they love John Cena. He brought a presence that attracted the next generation.
Yeah, the next generation of kids. But really, after John Cena, Roman Reigns, who we both, well, I think I did. I think you were retired by then, but I played against him when he was in Edmonton. Joe Atonaoi,
got that.
Yeah, he big. He was the big guy after John Cena. And really, I tune in once in a while, and it just didn't grab me. There was no storylines. There was no characters. No one did the mic like The Rock did. No one did the conflict like The Rock and Stone Cold, or The Rock and Vince McMahon. And I would follow once in a while, but it was really just these larger than life meatheads that did all these power moves, but really no mic presence. Like, gone were the guys like Bret the Hitman Hart, who were absolute technicians in the ring. Like
Jake the Snake.
And what we're getting at is, it's been dead for a while until this year. And this past weekend, WrestleMania, and I could tell that the barometer was moving, because as I kept looking through my Instagram feeds, more and more I would follow what's going on. And, it started actually in the fall, I believe, when the big civil lawsuit against Vince McMahon came out, where he was accused of all these sexual atrocities, including sexual trafficking. And I read the court affidavit, and I believe you did too. And
I did.
There's some nasty stuff. And the WWE being a publicly traded company, they had to distance themselves from that, right? They got rid of Vince McMahon. They had to really scrub themselves of anything that ruined their image. And part of that scrub was Brock Lesnar. Nowhere to be found in any of their advertising. No more Vince McMahon as the face of WWE. They really had to have an about face. And that's when they brought in The Rock, right? They brought in The Rock. He became one of the board of directors of TKO, which I believe is the parent company of both now the WWE and UFC, and basically inserted himself into alignment.
Well, you think about that choice for a second. I know you've always been a big Rock guy, right?
Oh,
but if you look at what he's done since wrestling, if you're taking an organization that was bigger than life, but an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And you had to promote one guy. Yeah, they brought up Stephanie McMahon, but she's still, for me as a casual guy, I look at her as her dad. I bring in Triple H.
He's part of the family.
He's part of the family too. I wouldn't buy that, but it was when you bring in The Rock, who's been squeaky clean, making movies suitable for kids for the last 5 years, just a likable guy. He had to have been the perfect choice. And I wonder how that conversation went, if he approached them or they approached him. But I think that was a perfect reset, fresh start for a struggling image.
Well, yeah. And The Rock has always held wrestling and football near and dear to his heart, right? You think about everything he's done since he left football, went into wrestling, and then after wrestling went into acting, and then he started bringing back the football in it with the purchase of the XFL and all the rights from the WWE. And then really all his other business dealings, right? It's all to do with athletics and sports, whether it's the Under Armour partnerships. And he just seemed like the perfect person to bring back. And they brought him back. He inserted himself into the storyline, and he basically became the ultimate bad guy. He called himself the final boss, which was really cool. It kind of alluded to that video game where you got to fight your way through all the guys to get to the final guy to be the champ. And he set himself up against Cody Rhodes, who is the youngest son of the great American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. If you grew up watching the old school wrestling, you remember Dusty. If you're more of a newer school guy, you remember Dustin Rhodes, who's also Gold Dust. So there's a huge family legacy there. And Cody was kind of the black sheep. He was known as the American Nightmare, contrary to his dad being the American Dream. And it was really a kind of a struggle for him to get to the top. I mean, Roman Reigns had been holding that top spot for, I think, a record number of years or days, consecutive days. And I think they really wanted to pump the young guy. And in fact, from what I understand is when they signed The Rock, the agreement was The Rock was going to feud with Roman Reigns, who is his cousin, and they call themselves the Bloodline. And I think when The Rock came in, he really saw an opportunity to put a bump. I guess that's the wrestling term for lifting up a guy who had been working his butt off for years and needed that push.
Well, he earned it.
Yeah, he absolutely earned it. He absolutely earned it. The Rock pushed him, but he did it in old school Attitude Era fashion. I watched Rock's promos. I watched some of the matches the last few weeks. I felt like I was watching the wrestling of the 90s that I really enjoyed when I was at university. And it showed up because WrestleMania, this past WrestleMania, this weekend that played out in Philadelphia, was one of the most watched WrestleManias ever. The ratings were through the roof. The amount of guest stars that appeared. I mean, you mentioned that you saw the bit where the Kelsey brothers, or actually Jason Kelsey, showed up and helped Rey Mysterio out in the luchador mask.
Yeah.
It brought back all, in the Cody Rhodes Rock match on Sunday, brought back some of the old favorites to interfere in the match and just make it a spectacle. I did enjoy that. I enjoyed the storyline.
And even Triple H is clean. Like for me, I look at the WWE as totally differently now. Even on Raw on that Monday, right? The next Monday live after the show, he's up there thanking the fans for making it happen. It's like a new, humble, straightforward, grassroots, embrace your fans, let us put on a show for you. And I think that's exactly what they needed, because for me, I've never spent $1 on the WWE since I went to my last match 25 years ago.
Yeah,
you know what? I think I'm gonna. I think I'm curious.
Yeah, and they're back because you got a guy like Pat McAfee who's wrestled. He was in the last WrestleMania last year. He won a match. He's one of the biggest podcast stars in the world. He's got such a following, and he is all over wrestling. He had the wrestlers on before. He had the wrestlers on after. He was live from Philadelphia. Then you have the Paul brothers. Logan Paul wrestling. He's the I believe it's the international champ. I think he's got one of the belts, and obviously him and his brother Jake are huge influencers of the youth. So I think that wrestling is back. And to something I just read today is after Rock's appearance last night, he was granted over 96,000 shares of TKO stock. And that stock is trading for $97.50 on the stock exchange.
What's the math on that?
$9.4 million of stock added to the I guess totaling 193,000 shares he has in that company. So he has about $18.8 million of stock in TKO. So when The
crazy.
Rock, he put in some sweat equity to put them back on the map, and it worked. I got to tell you one more thing before we head to break. So you guys know I have all my nice memorabilia behind me. So I was going to set this Rock up because I love The Rock. This is my little Rock action figure. And what I was going to do is I was going to set him up. And if you guys know, I have my own personal Chevy football guy there, and I was gonna have him buy some, but then my head fell off. Head fell off. Yeah, it fell in my head. So the rock bottomed my head off. So this is all I got for you. I was gonna hang it in the back, but the Rock killed me. He took me out. WrestleMania is back. We got to take a break. We love having you here. You can follow us at Chevy and Nasty. Remember, we're going to put the Eventbrite and a post up after the show for those of you that want to join us on May 15th for the Men's Mental Health Movie Night. We're on the NGBN.TV network. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. When we come back, we're going to have David Stark of the Athletes Podcast join us to talk about all his great adventures and some of the things he learned.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. And the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers were on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
And welcome back. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty on this Tuesday evening, coming to you every Tuesday evening live from 11 to 12 Mountain Standard Time, 10 o'clock Pacific. Chev,
we got a lot of comments. Yeah, I was going to say, we got a lot of comments about the RAS. Yeah. People love, the Hacksaw, Jim Duggins, the Heart Foundation. I mean, being in Calgary, people have to know that the Heart Foundation and Bret the Hitman Hart and his entire family are royalty up here. But yeah, I have a soft spot for wrestling. Yeah, as you know, I almost quit university to come and wrestle at the Hart Dungeon. My buddy did wind up quitting, and he wrestled for a couple of years, and he's now an RCMP officer. But yeah, I loved wrestling, but I definitely fell off. But gosh, this weekend I was watching some of the matches, some of the highlights, and I thought it was great. And I'm glad that this struck a chord with our listeners. Some really great comments. Keep them coming. Again, this segment is sponsored by WeDrone. Our show is sponsored by Performance Freight Management. And now we're going to welcome our guest to the show from the Athletes Podcast, Mr. David Stark. David, welcome to the show. Are you there?
What's up, gentlemen? Blue light blockers and all. I am here. It's 10:25 Pacific Standard Time, past my bedtime, but I'm here because this is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, David, it's great to see you again. So we actually got a chance to meet up with you a few months ago, and I was absolutely
almost a year ago.
Yeah, I guess almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely blown away. Here's a guy that called us up to do an interview, and you're literally traveling around with your sidekick. You've got your lights set up, your camera set up, your sound. I was like, oh my God, this guy's doing it right. And you're traveling all across the country interviewing different athletes. Where did that come from, David? When were you able to go from like being a guy, I like sports, I play sports, to I'm just going to start doing this and see where it goes?
I don't know if there was one moment per se. I guess rewind 4.5 years ago, graduated university at Brock, wanted to stay in the sports space in some capacity, studied sport management. So it seemed like a natural fit to keep talking to people, and had an opportunity to just reach out, talk to people in my bedroom for the first 30 episodes, literally DMing, Instagramming, finding people in my network, Niagara based. And then COVID hit, so I could expand to a global audience, right? And hit up anyone, do things virtually like this. And I realized quickly that closed mouths don't get fed. So I needed to be persistent. And obviously with our mission to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes, typically people are willing to come on the show. I think that was one of the reasons why you two were willing to come on graciously when we came to Calgary. But I wanted to take the show on the road, and I was in Toronto. COVID had just kind of finished up, and I was ready to keep moving and shaking. And I work remote, fortunately, so I don't have the ability to, or don't need to stay in one place. So yeah, we traveled from Toronto to LA, recorded 30 podcasts on the road, at various NCAA institutions, pro athletes along the way, rode up the coast, to here where I am in BC at the moment. Just released our 22nd episode. So yeah, one a week. I'm single now, so don't have the sidekick anymore. So it's a solo mission at the moment, but fortunately I have, hundreds, if not thousands of people every single week tuning in. And it's cool to see the impact that we're having. It's difficult to see like visually at times, because unless you're meeting people in person, they might not be willing to share that with you. But hey, if I help one person every time I log on and do something like this, then it's worth it, right?
So David, where can people find your podcast? Where do we find your podcast? The Athletes Podcast, where do we find it?
Yeah, anywhere you're consuming content, we should be there. And if we're not, let me know. But YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Buzzsprout, you name it, where we should be on it. Amazon Music, Google Music. The goal is really to be able to provide these conversations to the world. Selfishly, I wish I had the opportunity to talk to professional athletes when I was growing up, pick their brain, ask their questions, learn from nutritionists, coaches, the best of the best in the world. And I'm living it out, right? It's still a passion project. It's not something that's paying all of my bills. Granted, we do have some good partners that are, helping us along the way, but it's, I know that these conversations in person are so much more impactful as well. That's why I wanted to come out, have a steak with you guys and chop it up at Chuck's Steakhouse, right?
Nick's Steakhouse. Nick's. You're at Nick's Steakhouse. So yeah, you mentioned the conversation with us, and you know what? It was fun because that's when Sheldon and I were just getting back into. We wanted, we're still evolving the ride with Chevy and Nasty. Obviously, one day we'd love to be in person, shooting it, kind of the way you do, kind of the way a lot of the newer podcasts are out there. But you're doing it. Like, you've been in New Zealand, you go to LA, Toronto. You've met and interviewed so many fantastic athletes. Who are some of the ones that stuck out, and what are some of the lessons that you took from them that, on your mission of inspiring and educating young athletes, what are some of the key messages you got from some of these athletes that you can help young people with?
It would be, I'd be remiss to say and not have people go through and just look through our audience, honestly, because there's probably someone that we've talked to that will have an impact better than I can say who you should go and listen to. I mean,
Right.
there's some crazy story. Mitchell Hooper, over the past couple of years, world's strongest man now, went from, a bodybuilder, and he's now impacting the world, built brands, giving back charitably. I think of someone like Taylor Learmont, who's built an insane business. And
So tell us about Taylor. Tell us a little bit about Taylor when you mention names, because I don't know all the athletes, and I want to learn about some of these guys. Obviously, going to your podcast, but I really want to know who are some of the ones that impacted you.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with Wally Green then, who's a ping pong player from the Bronx, who was held up at gunpoint at 14 years old, and those kind of stories that you're not expecting. And when we're at Podfest down in Orlando, we end up spur of the moment. I'm like, hey, I just heard you speak. There's an open conference room. Let's have a podcast, right? Like, I personally am trying to make sure that people know that at the end of the day, if you want to achieve something, whether it's playing professional sports, whether it's building a business, whether that's owning the best lemonade shop in southern San Francisco, that if that's what you want to do, you should just pursue that, like with full intent. That's what I've learned, probably more than anything. Looking back, knowing what I know now, I would not have stopped playing sports competitively and pursuing a professional route. Like, even at 27, there's still part of me that's like, I want to go for a world long drive. Yeah. And like, I want to like start. I think when we were talking, I was playing a lot of pickleball, right? And like,
Yes,
man, there's opportunities there to still compete at a high level.
Yes,
in sports for me. And that's what interests me. So I think for other people, it should be, what passions do you have, and pursue that with the utmost intent, and forget about plan B. I think that's the other thing.
Amen.
I heard Alex Hormozy recently, so I'm going to like revert back to his quote around like, okay, if your plan B is to, at the very least, the only way you're going to pay bills is to like strip, me, I'll go Chippendales, and that's how I'll make my money, I guess, whatever, right? Okay, now that we've identified that's my plan B, let's just go out and go get it. Right. Because I know that I can do this. If I really need to make money, that's how I'm going to do it. My mom's not going to be thrilled about it, but that's what I'm going to have to do.
I think your plan B was Sheldon's plan A.
No, mine was selling hot dogs, and it just happened to turn into a pro football career. But I'm so go ahead.
You bring up the hot dogs, Sheldon. You have the second highest performing clip that we've ever shown on the Athletes Podcast Instagram channel. And I like, you bring that up, and it's like, those are the little things that I can't say that you didn't have a major impact on me when you shared that story.
Wow.
Right. And I can't say that Randy didn't when he shared his story of being stabbed. Right.
Yeah.
So, and there's 220 plus of those. Right. So, Randy, when you ask me, like, who are those ones that impact, every single person,
just go through the catalog.
Honestly, I mean this honestly, like, every single person has impacted me in some way, shape, or form. Others at different times. Others I've rewatched and it's made a difference then. Like, I've grown over the past 5 years too, right? And I've matured hopefully a little bit. And like, a lot of these things sometimes don't necessarily sink in at the same time, but you try and be a sponge and soak it up at some point.
So I'm glad you brought it that direction, because I was less interested in who you've been interviewing. I've watched a few of them, and I get enthralled every time I watch them, because a lot of people have stories. Everybody's got a story, right? But I'm more interested in yours. And so when you talked about that first time you're hitting the road and you're just calling people up, like, I know that we've got people in here, even in the chat lines right now, that are starting up new businesses, have been given new offers. But it's scary, right? Like, it's scary for me to make the hot dog call, right? For you to go out there and start saying, hey, I'm a podcaster. Everybody feels like a phony when they start, but you've got to be driven to do it. What were some of the mental obstacles that you had to overcome? What was the voice in the back of your head telling you that could have just kept you at home that day?
That's a really good question. I'd be lying if I said that voice wasn't still there. I think that's part of the reason why I was excited to come on this show. You guys bring up mental health all the time. It's something that I'm passionate about. It's something I'm trying to pursue, building a network of individuals within the first responder community to build frankly, a high performance group that's talking about these conversations on a larger scale level and how we can make a large impact. But like, every single day I am dealing with those conversations, Sheldon, to answer your question. Even 4.5 years ago, I think maybe that voice might not have been as prevalent. And sometimes you look back, and I think it's important when you guys, like you were referencing, like I have a catalog of people that we've talked to. Like, I don't scroll back and look through that enough. I struggle smelling the roses. And I'm very driven, head down, and to my own fault, right? Like, that's driven people, relationships away. So like, that's stuff that I still need to work on. But all that being said, there's an opportunity to continue having these kind of conversations and hopefully showcase the fact that even if you are driven, even if you are dealing with those negative, people on your shoulder, that there's still hope and that there's still the opportunity to make a damn big impact despite those conversations that are happening. And like, imposter syndrome, everyone has a bit of it, Jamin, you're right. Like, but you can also quiet that voice by proving it wrong.
And isn't it interesting because as men, we're often driven to make it, right? We need to make it. We have this passion, we have this vision. You just got to keep going. But there are times that it does come at a cost, right? Whether it's like I had an old personal trainer that used to talk about spinning plates. And if you have 4 or 5 plates in the air, you can keep them spinning. But if you're really focused on the one, sometimes the other plates kind of slip to the side and have to fall. But so basically what I'm saying is there's a fine line between really like the pursuit of a goal and obsession. And that's always sort of a balance to find, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that I like to say yes to a lot of things. So I keep a lot of plates spinning in the air and I haven't just insanely focused on one thing. I think if anything, I've tried to pursue endeavors that overlap just enough that I can start making connections long term. Like, fortunately, I have the power of time on my side. Like, I'm young and I know that, as I continue to do these things and hopefully put good content out into the world, that it'll come back in return in any way, shape, or form that is. But I think people have I'm trying to find the right way to put that into. Sheldon, can you say your question again?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we always compliment and admire people that are going after their dream, but until you do it, you don't understand how much obsession there can be a negative side that you battle on that too, right? It's just finding what keeps you going versus like falling off track or becoming too. I'm not sure I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it because you're clearly a guy that takes the path that most people don't.
So I just had a conversation with Dr. Ben Sporer, who's the VP of Innovation Research with the Vancouver Whitecaps FC. And I asked him about balance. And I ask a lot of athletes, coaches on the show about balance. And it's amazing the varying answers that you get between, I believe in balance and there should be balance. And people talk about buckets that are filled and that it's like social, physical, mental, spiritual. And I think everyone, find what works for you too, right? Like, that's what's important. I personally don't think there is balance in the world. I think there's seasons in life. I think Michael Jordan was probably not balanced in his pursuit of becoming the best basketball player in the world. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Connor McDavid, they weren't balanced individuals at some point in their lives, but they had a season, whether it's a decade, 2 decades. You guys had seasons as professional athletes where you were putting in way more hours into your physical and mental health compared to your social, for instance, right? And it's a season in my life. Am I going to be the most popular guy out there? Probably not. Am I going to be out there on Fridays and Saturday nights boozing with the boys? Probably not. So like, my relationships are going to go way down.
Yeah. Right? And I think that's fantastic how you articulated that. Cause I can relive when I was trying to get into the NFL and the CFL out of college, I aligned myself even within my sport with the guys that wanted it more. Because let's face it, even whatever industry you're in, there's guys that are just happy to wear the jacket. And then there's ones that want to be the best on the team. And then there's ones that want to be the best in the world. And you're always looking for those positive alignments to get you where you want to be. And we've got some fantastic people listening to the show. You know, I talk about Chris Rubio, who's a friend of ours. He has his own show, The Rubio Method. It's on the NGBN TV network. He is the guru for long snappers across North America. And
the gamer.
There are kids. I mean, he was on Freakonomics podcast talking about that and opened the eyes to a whole world of sports performance out there where people are like, wow, I can't believe there's people that are this dedicated to that one thing, which is throwing a ball between your legs. And I get it because I did it and he gets it. And you know that, yeah, there's people that'll just show up and say, yeah, I did it in high school. I can do this. And then there's people that obsess about it, to Sheldon's point and to your point. So it's very interesting. And I love how you articulated that, but you also mentioned that there are overlapping interests. And although you're singularly focused on this amazing podcast, the Athletes Podcast that you got, you've also got a few other projects, one with your full-time work that kind of overlaps. And that's kind of how we got talking. And then a new project. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of those other things that you're starting to get off the ground? Because I think that's really interesting. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I really want to get into what, you told me about your new project today.
Yeah, I'll be quick with both. Expert VR, it's been around for actually 7 years now. So we develop software for first responder training, firefighter, law enforcement. Any education institution is also using us for business, research, ethics, EDI, etc. Insert any process-based learning. We can build it and build a story around it and build software that's used. And it's obviously immersive learning, more engaging. Students are interacting better than a PowerPoint. That's full-time gig, partnerships. That's why I was in Edmonton, Lakeland, Vermilion, actually, specifically yesterday. And that's why
Fire College. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, shout out. That is an incredible institution for anyone who hasn't been there. That's phenomenal. Nonetheless, best in North America. I can say that confidently. Second to that, Cook Stark Management, LDC Talent. 3.5 years ago, Lander Cook started what is LDC Talent, representing 20 female hockey players. He and I connected a year and a half ago now. I saw what he was doing, liked what he was doing, figured, hey, why are you not providing this for all female athletes, not just hockey players? So through conversation with him, we kicked this off. He saw this was like he was treated better as a mediocre U Sports player than his girlfriend, who was an all-star on the female hockey team.
Yeah.
So he's like, man, he's a paralegal. He's like, this needs to change. So we now have over 30 women on our roster, from Canadian Olympians, U Sports, NCAA, competing overseas right now. So we're hopefully making an impact. And, through obviously connections that I have through the Athletes Podcast, it was a natural fit for me to say, hey, Lander, like, let's do something together. Right. I saw the impact he was having. And frankly, us men have been enjoying the ride to use this team for a while, right? And we have obviously just seen what happened in NCAA women's basketball championships, the numbers that they put up, crushing men, Shaq chirping the men. Like this is it's a time, and I figured that we got to leave this place better than we found it, right? And this was an opportunity. I could have gone out and started a regular agency, quote unquote regular, because I have a ton of guys hitting me up to do stuff. But What the heck are we going to be known for if we're just another agency?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make a difference. It is not easy. That is the one thing that I'll also share about everything, is that like life isn't easy.
Yeah.
Hard work is required to see success, I think. And even when you grind for 5 or 10 years, people are still going to call you an overnight success. And I think that's one reason that maybe I'm kicking myself for not like vlogging for 5 or 10 seconds every day, just being like reminding people of what we've gone through. Cause I know you guys have grinded too. And I think I would leave it, cause I've gone on a ramble here. a guy like Dana White shared recently, there's clips going around of like, it only takes a little bit of you being a savage to outwork the rest of the people in our generation right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that because it's like I'll classify it in my generation. Like, I don't want to say soft, but there's definitely an opportunity to separate yourself from the herd. And I think that's the message I would like to leave it with too.
Yeah. I tell kids all the time, I think it's the easiest age for kids to become professional athletes. We've never had access to more information, more training, more equipment, more opportunity, but all that is balanced by the absolute on-demand laziness that kids these days are exposed to, from technology to YouTube, TikTok. Like I see my kids, they're typical teenagers. They could spend an hour or two on YouTube and TikTok just doing nothing, whereas if a kid's out there grinding, and I see it with one of my sons now, he is completely immersed in football and everything is about football. And I see how he's going, but the kids these days, and I have a lot of exposure. I spent lots of time in schools. I coach a lot. Taking the easy and the lazy path is so much easier, that if you have that one kid that's super driven and uses the technology at their disposal for what it can help them for, it's actually the opportunities there. Like you mentioned, it absolutely is for kids, especially athletes, I would say.
Just go for it. Like if you have any sliver of desire to pursue it, the pain of regret is so much worse than the pain of not pursuing it in the first place.
Yep. Well, look, Sheldon,
here's what I'm excited about. I know we got to go to break here in just a second, but I love where you're coming from. And honestly, this generation, we had drinking, like partying and girls, right? And now it's a 24/7 excuse to not be training. But I love that you're coming from that as you pursue to be Canada, maybe the world's greatest pickleball player here in the next 5 years, which you can do, right? You absolutely can do. While you're working on that, I'll also be looking at you, looking out for you at the local Chippendales clubs, because your plan B, if you're motivated
or the
by hook or by crook, you're gonna get there.
Stunt double for Connor McDavid in Edmonton. I'm sure you got some autograph requests the other day.
It's usually once a week in Vancouver or Toronto. In Edmonton, it was basically everywhere I went.
Crazy. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. No, if I was a bad person, I could have had a lot of fun. But we reside to the fact that we were raised by great human beings too, and I always like to mention the fact that I had two incredible parents and grandparents that raised me, and thank you guys for having me on this. I appreciate your time too, and you guys came out, chatted with me in person. You guys were a part of educating, entertaining, and inspiring the next generation of athletes. You're doing it here. You're helping men. You're having these conversations. Kudos to you too.
Thanks,
Keep it up, man. Of course, all I heard is I was second. We got to try this again because I want to be first on your Instagram reel.
Yeah. No, David,
we'll definitely make something happen.
Well, thanks for coming. And we'll check in, because that's part of the journey is seeing where we are, taking inventory of what we've done and how we've done together. And we're definitely going to have you back on the ride. And we hope to be back on the Athletes podcast, because Lord knows we had more stories to tell and not enough time.
I'm sure there's going to be a couple shared over the next few years. And hey, kudos to the NBT,
NGBN.TV network.
You guys are doing amazing stuff. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for having me.
Got it, David.
All right, let's take a break, Sheldon. When we get back, we'll get back to the leftovers. Again, you can follow us at Chevy and Nasty on all our socials. We're here on the NGBN.TV network, live every Tuesday, 11 to midnight and beyond, courtesy of WeDrone and our title sponsor, Performance Freight Management. We'll get back with some fun topics to hit in a couple of minutes.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced, like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Welcome back to the ride. Yeah, I'm here this time.
You made
I got the timing down.
You made
I
it
got
to
the
the
timing
chair.
down. Welcome back to the ride with Chevy and Nasty, live every Tuesday night at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard, 10 o'clock Pacific. You can figure out the rest of the time zones from there. A couple of shout outs tonight. Dana Duggan, welcome to the show and new to the show, first time commenting. It's great to see you here tonight. 3C LA Ministries. Chev, have you engaging the ride, always a fine line, talking about that battle of obsession versus finding balance, right?
Yeah, and Dave is such an engaging guest. I mean, he's such a personable guy. We had the opportunity to sit down with him, as mentioned, at Nick's Steakhouse, and we did one of our first podcasts as guests on someone else's podcast together. And gosh, what a fun time! Just kind of describing a little bit of our athletic journey. And yeah, your reel is number 2 on his on Instagram. That's an accomplishment. The hot dog. So we haven't.
Yeah, it was like 180,000 or something like that on there. It was kind of crazy. I was that's my most viral thing ever. Not that folks, you guys know me. I'm not on social media much. Chevy's our social media guru. I try to keep up with the crew, right? But yeah, that was surprising.
But you know what? I was gonna say is having him on was neat because it kind of brought us back to where we started. There was something he talked about, like just go for it. And when we were, it took us a number of years. Oh, that he was talking about that pain of regret. Had we not gone for it last year and decided we're going to start our podcast, and we didn't know what we were doing. We called it season 0 for about 5 months. We went on hiatus. We didn't know where we were going. We tried to figure it out, but yeah, we just went for it and we figured it out on the way. And we picked up a couple of awesome people on the way, listeners, friends, contributors, colleagues, and it's been awesome. We're live on the NGBN.TV network, a network dedicated to men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, every Tuesday night. We got a great crew of listeners that contribute to the show. All of you that are still on with us right now, it's awesome. And we're building it, and we're building the right. Want to make sure that if you are here tonight and you're joining us late, we announced our big event. We're going to put on all our socials, but May 15th at the Cochrane Movie House, we're hosting the men's mental health movie night, courtesy of Performance Freight Management. There's going to be a live Chevy and Nasty fireside chat. We're going to have Brett Gardner, world-renowned pro rodeo announcer and performance coach. And then we're going to be screening what do we call it? A private screening of the movie Fall Guy. And the whole thing is free. It's free. We're even going to feed you. So all you got to do is get on our Eventbrite link. And all we ask is that if you say you're coming, you come. We want to fill the slot. So, Nasty, what do you want to talk about next? Do we have a couple of topics in our leftovers?
They're calling for some leftovers here, and I think we've got just a few minutes left. But the one thing we didn't get to touch on last week, Rashee Rice.
Yes,
you heard about that, of course.
Yeah, Rashee Rice, the Kansas City Chiefs,
outstanding receiver. Rookie wide
outstanding.
Receiver,
Their number one receiver. That's going to be their number one wideout. I mean, he's number 2 after Travis Kelce, but he really is their number one receiver, their number one option. Gets in a car wreck a couple of weeks ago. 2 cars racing in Texas. I hope by now you've seen the video. If not, you got to look it up. A Corvette and Lamborghini racing, get out of control, smash into a couple of cars. And then at the time, the drivers of both vehicles, the Corvette and Lamborghini, left the scene. They didn't check on any of the victims in the other vehicles that they hit at full speed. They just left, right? And at the time, it came into question as to whether he was in the car. One of the cars was a car that he had registered. He, I believe, he leased from one of these
he leased the Lamborghini. Yeah, he leased the Lamborghini.
Leased the Lamborghini. Anyhow, it turns out he was the driver of the Lamborghini. Okay, and he might be in some big trouble. He might be in some big trouble for leaving the scene. And not checking on people,
and of course there's going to be some trouble in this. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I look at what happened, and when you're young, like we've all been in that situation where we've done stupid stuff. Street racing is something that's been so public that the drivers are at fault. It's not an accident; it's attempted murder. If you're caught doing this, this is as bad as drinking and driving. Street racing, take it to a track, take it somewhere safe, but young men with lots of money tend to make dangerous mistakes, right? Yeah. I get it. Thank God nobody was seriously injured. But the bad look for him, even recovering from that, the bad look for him was walking away.
Like, and the NFL has been plagued with some poor choices. I mean, obviously, what's his name? Ruggs from LA, the Raiders, last year killed someone in his car. He's in jail. But you look at the decision that Rashee Rice made. There's going to be a ton of investigation. What was he running from? What was he hiding? What was he taking?
It's not a good look. You grab your bag and walk away. You don't do that if you're sober and not carrying some kind of contraband on you.
Well,
right?
They said that there was some found in the vehicle.
Yeah.
But he had come from. It just looks bad. And if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, this is the problem. They're already dealing with the optics of the Andy Reid. Oh, Sheldon just give me the time. Are we going overtime? We're
gonna have to. We'll take 5 minutes.
Okay, so listen, we're gonna cut out from the network here. So if you're watching on ngbn.tv, on Roku, Amazon Fire, any of those other live streaming apps, we're gonna take a break. But you could still continue to follow us live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and also LinkedIn. I think we're live.
Oh, we're on LinkedIn tonight. Excellent.
Yeah, so we're going to continue with overtime because we are going to go over. Last week, you were all shocked when Jenna pulled the plug on us, but that's okay. She had to catch a flight. But this week, we're going to do a little overtime. We'll continue our topic. So, Jenna, you want to flash the little overtime slide so that we know we're there? Because the people want overtime. The people wanted the overtime. Are you happy? Do we amuse you? Hey, Spider, am I clown? Do I amuse you? So we're in overtime. We're going to finish up on that topic. But the Chiefs, with Rashee Rice fleeing the scene of a motor vehicle accident, they're already dealing with the bad press from Andy Reid's son, who had a motor vehicle accident, I believe 2 years ago. And he put a girl in a coma. So Britt Reid, he was driving home. I believe it was from a team function. He got into a motor vehicle accident. He put a 7-year-old girl in a coma. And that one was just optics. He's no longer in the NFL. He had been sentenced, and the judge commuted his sentence. But yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for the Chiefs. It doesn't look good for Rashee Rice. What do you think is going to happen, Sheldon?
There's got to be consequences. And again, even if I think the worst mistake, making the mistake of racing was a bad call, right? But it was walking away and all the fishiness. And maybe he had to, maybe he's avoiding bigger charges. It's not a good look. I've not that my heart goes out to a guy that committed, an offense, but I understand that guys are going to make mistakes, right? But if you just take a look at it, if he would have just stopped right there, gotten out of the car, owned it, before he's worried about himself and his boys, if he went and checked on those people that he just put into a nasty wreck, I think the world would be looking at this differently, and I would be looking at this differently.
But
I think they've got to be without Rashee Rice next year, don't they? Like, can you bring him back in without suspension?
Yeah, I think he's getting suspended for sure. The thing is, will he get a second chance? And I do believe, we've seen guys kill guys. I mean, you look at, what was it, former Edmonton Oilers coach Craig McTavish? He was involved in a car wreck where he killed someone. And
different day and age.
Different day and age. But yeah, most recently this week, NFL draft prospect Andre Sweat was involved in a rollover crash just before a DWI arrest. So, yeah,
I think he just broke up there, though. Who was that? Who just got in a wreck?
His name is Devondre Sweat.
Okay.
He's a prospect from the Texas Longhorns. Yeah, he had a rollover, flipped the car on his side in Texas again. But yeah, he was driving while under the influence. So
yeah, and Rob Evans just writes out there one word: accountability. And I think, like, I don't need professional athletes to be my role models, even though they will play a role as a role model, right?
Yeah.
But I do need to see that these organizations that are making billions of dollars promoting a sport and promoting athletes out to the world, there has to be accountability, right?
Yeah.
And I think this one's going to be serious. Thank God nobody got injured worse, but they're going to have to do something to show to remind the next generation of players coming up that those months, especially those 2, 3, 4 months after the Super Bowl, you got all that cash. You're just letting your shoulders down. You're getting out there back into you're enjoying the off season, enjoying your off season friends, right? That you've got to still think with your head and make good decisions. And there's going to have to be some accountability for this. As for second chances, I'm all for second chances. Right.
Well, when you talk about the Chiefs, and we talked about Britt Reed, Andy Reid's son, his sentence most recently, he was sentenced to 7 years prison. He had his sentence commuted. So the Missouri governor commuted his sentence, which, that adds insult to injury for the victims, especially in his case where, a little girl winds up in a coma. Yeah.
Did she come through? Did she come through?
I'm just taking a look, but yeah, I'm not going to take time to read it right now, but just the fact that he put someone in a coma, and he's getting off, not scot-free, but he's getting a double standard to apply to him. And there are so many places you can go with this, because I have so many African-American friends that would say if this happened to an African-American in the United States, his sentence would not be commuted. And I know that.
Might be right. I don't know.
For a fact, for a lot of guys, some guys get longer prison terms for lesser of an offense. And it's just odd that there is a double standard in the world that seems to exist. And I don't know how it's going to play out with Rashee Rice. Will the fact that he's an up and coming NFL star play into it? Or is the fact that he's an up and coming NFL star play into it in a negative way, that they might make an example of him? I'm not sure where I lean on this. I agree with you. I agree with Rubio that when someone makes such a callous decision to walk away, I think there's something wrong there. I think there's something wrong. A mistake's a mistake. A lot of people own up to their mistakes. They say he's cooperating with the law right now, but he sure as heck didn't cooperate with the community he lives in the moment. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We'll keep our eye on it. We've been wanting to talk about this for a couple of weeks, and obviously there was a development this week when he admitted to driving the Lambo. So I'm sure it's not over. Just like we talked about P. Diddy a few weeks ago. That's still taking shape. But when I talk about leftovers or something we want to talk about today, Sheldon, something near and dear to my heart. I love sports. I love geek culture. The one thing that I heard today on the news, and it's something that I love. The first appearance of Superman in Action Comics sold at auction today for $6 million. So that iconic cover right there, Action Comics. Number one, the first appearance of Superman, the first time they introduced his love interest, Lois Lane. I don't know if anyone listening here is a big Superman fan, but $6 million. $6 million.
And that was what I just saw on the screen there. That was the actual cover of the comic book, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't Superman the series. It was Action Comics with multiple heroes. And so that was the first time he's introduced. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, that's part of Americana. If you think of comic books, if you think of superheroes, I got to believe he's number one. There might be some people that
for
say
sure.
Captain America just because of the patriotic, lean, but Superman is number one by far. And then, you're thinking maybe, Spider-Man and Batman, but everyone is second to Superman. Everyone's based on that iconic character. So this comic book sells at auction for $6 million. It's not even a mint condition version of the comic. I don't know, Sheldon, do you collect any comics growing up? Were you a comic book guy?
Oh, I collected comics. I collected hockey cards, but they all ended up just getting read and tossed into a corner somewhere, right in with the laundry. I did not respect the investment of the comics. I just read them purely because I wanted to read them, right? Like it was interesting, so I read them, and then they just ended up in a backpack somewhere, right?
Yeah.
What about you? Were you a collector or?
Well, see, I grew up with two brothers that were artists and collectors. So I have one brother that has
Craig Adams says he's starting a comic. Yeah, that's the way to do. But you got to come up with a perfect character. And apparently this one, it still surprises me why Superman. And that's probably another episode for another day. Why was Superman so popular?
He just represented everything that was pure. I mean, he always did right. He always, he valued life. He valued kindness. He represented the American way. He was just that.
Even
guy.
though he didn't have to, right?
Right.
And maybe that was it, because he didn't have to, because he was so OP, right?
Yeah.
Nobody could stop him.
No one could stop him except for kryptonite, right?
Kryptonite,
But he, they always say the funny thing about Superman is every superhero,
Holy cow.
Did
you read that comment? Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt here. I was just reading Daryl McKenna. The first Superman was filmed on our ranch. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So the Daryl, our good friend,
ranches at Niagara Falls, because wasn't that at Niagara Falls or
no. So the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeves, the Kansas scenes where he was a kid and he picks up the tractor over his head and all that stuff, that was filmed here in Alberta, and down by Mossley. Just I guess a little north of Vulcan, and our friend Daryl, Performance Freight Management, his ranch is basically where they filmed the Superman movie. So a lot of those scenes were filmed right here in Alberta. But you asked me the question about collecting comics. I did collect comics. I didn't have a vast collection, but I have a brother that has a huge collection. Like we're talking probably over 700,000 comics. And even for him, I spoke to him today when I heard about this. I asked him, I said, what's your most valuable comic? And just like he said, I don't know. He's like, I don't buy them to value them. He buys them to read them. Yeah. And he draws like he's an artist, right? For me, when I got into collecting comics, I did collect comics. And the ones that I started collecting were right around the time where X-Men were super popular. And a little known character at the time come out named Deadpool, introduced by Rob Liefeld in New Mutants 98. And, now Deadpool is like, it's one of the highest grossing superhero movies out there. But when Deadpool came out, I had bought 5 or 6 copies of his first appearance. I was really into some of those comics, and one of my best friends worked at a comic book store back home. So we had access to all the first print runs of the comics, but I don't even know where they are anymore. I moved out of the home. I had one brother that loved comics. I had another brother that loved comics. I got my box there. They might have got plundered.
You know who else loved comics?
Who's that?
Nicolas Cage.
Oh yeah, Nicolas Cage loved comics. And yes, we were going to talk about that. So Nicolas Cage had one of the world's largest comic book collections. And he had a quite pristine copy of this Action Comics #1 first appearance. It got stolen, Sheldon.
Oh, I didn't know that. It got stolen.
In 2011, his copy of Action Comics #1 was stolen. It got recovered, okay, and then he wound up selling it for $2.1 million at the time. But yeah, he is a big, and I actually heard that he lost a lot of his comics. Basically, he got divorced, and I guess at some point his ex-wife put a value on his comic book collection, and he had to sell his comic book collection in order to pay half the value to his ex-wife. But he is he is a huge comic book collector, and he did have a copy of that Action Comics #1, which he sold for $2.1 million. He also had a copy of Detective Comics #27. And trivia question, Sheldon, whose first appearance would that have been? Detective Comics #27.
Oh God, I wouldn't even know where to start.
He's another famous superhero.
But a detective comic?
Yeah, detective. Who's
Batman.
the greatest? That's right.
There
That's
you
right.
go. Yeah.
Detective Comics, Bob Kane. Episode #27, Detective Comics, was the first appearance of Batman. Nicolas Cage owned both of those. His comic book collection, that the books that were stolen were worth over $10 million at the time. So he's still trying to recover some of his comic book collection. But yeah, he loves the comics. I wonder, they didn't announce.
Robin.
They didn't announce the Robin. They didn't announce the anonymous bidder on the Action Comics, but $6 million is a hefty price.
Yeah,
Hefty price.
Sure.
Indeed. Anything else you want to touch on? I know we talked a little bit about a true crime show that we watched this week.
I think that one deserves more time than we can give tonight. So, I don't know, unless you got something you really want to touch on. I think I just want to put out a message to you guys that are still on with us right now. You have good days and you have bad days, good weeks, bad weeks. I've really learned recently the importance of having good friends. And Chev, I just want to say again, I really appreciate this stupid little podcast that we do on this awesome little network called the NGBN.TV network, who are gracious enough to let us join you guys every week. I'll tell you tonight, when I see some new people joining here and all the communication and stuff, guys, I just want to say thanks. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I certainly am. And just remember, with the men's mental health night that we have coming up, this is just a reminder that there's good people out there, and to rely on your network, right? You never know when somebody's going to be able to help you out, or more importantly, when you're going to be able to help somebody out. So I just want you guys to remember, if you can make it, go on to the Eventbrite link that Jenna posted earlier, or find it on our socials, and get yourself a ticket. There's still probably 90 seats left or 80 seats left or something like that. But we would love to see each and every one of you that can make it at the event. Rubio, my wife works for an airline. I'll get you a WestJet ticket up here.
And a poutine. I'll get you a poutine because
I can make poutine. I'm pretty sure Geese is going to be serving poutine across the street, though.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a great night. I guess let's end it here, Sheldon. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us. We made it through some overtime. Thanks to Jenna for producing the show, our fabulous producer. I'm going to get some Gorilla Glue. I got to fix little Chevy here after the Rock slammed him through the table. I got to figure out how to fix this thing, but I'm going to fix my little Chevy. In a week, we'll be back. We'll have more great stories to tell. In the meantime, look for the clips from tonight's show. We put them out on Facebook. We put them out on YouTube, Instagram, X. We're going to put out information about the men's mental health movie night. And guys, I echo Sheldon's sentiments. For me, this is such an uplifting experience every week. I hope it's the same for all of you. We love hearing you tune in. I look forward to seeing each and every one of your comments every week. And thanks again for joining us right here on The Ride.